Did you go to the ZA
Also,
already?
also here is the Will Bishop, the landscape architect for the project. So that's coming back to consent for landscape, basically. So
So uh, did you get an zoning approval, ZA approval for the
um,
modification?
I mean, we're in the process still. It
Oh,
can't
okay,
go
very
further
good.
until yeah.
Okay, so the only comment was returned with a landscape plan. So Robert, please check this out. Can you please describe make a presentation on the landscape plan?
Okay, Will, would you like to go ahead with that?
Yeah, I can walk through this. Uh, Basically, they are removing a barn and putting in an ADU. I think is what we're considering it, or what we're calling it. And to do that, we're going to take out a couple, I think they're existing tipuana trees, and we're going to put in more tipus or something like that so that it fits in with the palette, and keep the planting pretty minimal, just to sort of repair where the grading was done and to accent the building. But it's sort of a woodland kind of understory, so we don't want to pack it with planting. The other item was sort of where they're fitting in the new parking according to the Hope Ranch standards. We're adding basically some geo-grid so that we can plant grass. We won't be able to actually see the difference, but allow cars to park there and meet that requirement. But that was mainly it. It was a pretty minimal plan. We're going to be using mainly Mediterranean native plants, so it's all a low water use palette. That's pretty much it.
So the geogrid where you're showing the parking there is planted?
Yes. Yeah, where it's green, where you showed green, yeah, that will be planted.
I think you should go to the last sheet here, please, of the landscape plan.
So typically it won't serve as planting, or I mean as parking, but it can. It's mainly just to meet those requirements. Typically no one's going to be parking.
Okay. Well, given that you are proposing to replace the two tipu with tipu trees, I think that's an appropriate move. I'm familiar with your site here. It's kind of open and like loosely planted with oak trees. I've driven past this before. So I don't think it's really necessary to plant a whole bunch other than what you're proposing here. And I think your resolution of trying to get the parking requirements met makes sense. I don't know that Carrick's would be a good move to park on it every day, but if it's kind of just to serve a occasional purpose for that, I think that's acceptable. So I think it's okay to move it forward.
Right. Okay, very good. So, so the landscape plan is appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for preliminary. So I guess we'll get more details on for final then. Okay. So
Okay.
all right, very good. Okay, so we'll see you. We'll move on at the main meeting. So thank you.
Thank you
We'll see
very much.
You're welcome. So is item C1 back online? C1, 840 Toro Canyon Road. No. Okay. So Joe, are you online? Joe Dargo?
Hey, Joe, can you hear us?
I'm here.
We can review this without the applicant present, isn't that correct?
So it is on the agenda, so you could review it if the applicant isn't here. If you don't have a presentation though, and you have questions, I think we'd probably get into
Okay.
it might be tricky. So if it's easy to approve, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, so let's take a look. Jonathan, can you?
Trying to, but the plans.
Yeah, so the files weren't working for this project, and there was nothing in the C2 folder this morning, so
Okay, all right.
really great to have access to these to review beforehand, because otherwise,
Okay, we'll continue this item then. Okay, very good. So that completes the consent calendar review. Thank you.
And Francisco, County Planning here. I was tuned in case there was any questions on C1. I guess it's too late to upload those plans or try to re-upload those plans again, correct?
We'll continue to next week then. Okay, I mean to the next
To the next meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll let the agent know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we will begin the December 20th, 2024 Aspire hearing. And we'll start with any public comment not relating to items on today's agenda. Anyone in the audience or online?
We have received no letters, but I'll give participants an opportunity to speak if they would like to. If anybody has a comment not on today's agenda, please raise your hand in the chat or in the audience. Seeing none.
Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to the agenda status report.
Nothing to report for the agenda status report.
And we'll review the minutes from December 6th. We have a quorum. Everyone already reviewed them. We can chime in if there's any changes. Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments on the first 3 items? Or adjustments,
Number 3.
1 through 3, since it's kind of what's on the screen? No? Okay.
Wait a second. August. This is
3 was the one.
why does it say meeting of August the 23rd on the letter on
I think it's
the typo, right? Yeah. Like,
good to that, Jonathan. It's just in the header of the December 6th meeting, the header still says August 23rd. Okay, thanks. All right, anyone catch anything else? I think everyone's just all the way to the last item.
well, 6 is the more interest. Well, I think it's accurate. It was a difficult project, but I think the comments are accurate.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
That would second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I wasn't there, so no vote for me.
Okay.
Uh,
The one abstain. Great, and we'll move on to the Aspire members' informational briefings. Anybody have anything? So it's our last day.
Yeah, there are some important things
There
to
are some
say.
good things. It's our last day with Chris and John on the board. Gonna miss them so much.
Been fun, guys.
Thank you so much for your years of wisdom. Not gonna be the same without you guys.
Vote.
Chris.
How about the speech?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to miss you guys. I think we do important work here, and I appreciate all this intellect and staying in the mainstream of architecture and landscape architecture, of course. And I'm going to miss you guys. I'm thinking about that since I made that announcement, but you know, it's time for me to go. It's been 9 years, I think. And I appreciate all the work that we've done and that I know you're going to do good work in the future. So thanks for the privilege.
You.
Oh, I can't top that. No, it's been quite an excellent experience for me. Just we're all friends here. We have a good time, and our lunches are going to be missed. And maybe I'll come join you randomly one day. But yeah, it's a really good experience, I think, being here and seeing what other people are doing and seeing folks that we know well from the community that come in, and hopefully we didn't cause too many problems for you all. But I think it is, as John said, it's important work, and I think we have definitely one of the best groups or panels or whatever you want to call it in this community. We're not too hard on anybody, and but I think we provide a lot of good input, I hope. So I am going to miss doing this.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on to the staff update.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. I didn't have any updates for the board this morning, but I did just want to echo my thanks to Chris and John for being on the board for the years that you have, and you'll be missed.
Thanks, Joe. We can't hear you that well. We heard, I think Jonathan's trying to mess with your volume, but
Is this better?
better.
Okay.
All right, and we'll move on to the consent agenda items. I have to recuse from item C3.
We did not review item C1. The applicant was not here and the project was not readily available. C2 is, we approve it as, we would like to approve it as submitted, and the same for C3. So I make a motion to approve both items C2 and C3 as submitted and continue C1 for the next agenda.
I second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we'll move on to item 1. Thank you, audience, for your patience. Little site visit this morning. Item 1, the Smith Hontus Family Trust, new single-family dwelling. I think they were coming. Oh, shoot. It was a long drive from the site visit. Yeah, let's go to 2 and come back. Okay, moving on to item 2, Nevins additions.
You want me to start with the memo?
Yeah, let's start with the memo. Right.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'll review the memo and then you can introduce yourselves. The project is a request for a coastal development permit and modification to allow the renovations to the existing single-family dwelling, including an addition that will partially encroach into the 50-foot setback. We made these findings that are on the screen on September 20th, 2024, finding that the modification was consistent with adjacent development. It was appropriate for Mass Vulcan scale. We asked to incorporate additional planting in front of the wall along the street to soften the property frontage and increase the size of the trees to 36-inch box where possible. The ZA on December 2nd took action and made the required CEQA findings and determined that it's exempt from CEQA pursuant to that code. They approved the project subject to conditions of approval. Is there anything else on there, Jonathan?
No, that's it.
Okay, you guys can go ahead and state your name for the record and give us your presentation.
Let's start, Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin Ernest with SEPS Land Use Consulting, Mark Shields with Design Arc, and Jessica Harlan with Barefoot Design. Yeah, happy to be back here for final approval. As stated, the coastal development permit and setback modification was approved by the zoning administrator. The board has continuously been supportive of the project, so let us know if you would like an overview. If not, we can review the details and Jessica can speak to a minor comment on the landscaping plan.
Great. Yeah, you can focus on any responses to the comments since we're familiar.
Good morning, Mark
Morning.
Shields here. I think you've already seen most of the overall project and the zoning modification worked out luckily. The existing house, we remodeled years ago and it's a board and bat, kind of a combination of horizontal siding and board and bat, which makes it look interesting. And so our new project, which is the addition and the garage, is the same vernacular. So I think you can take a look at A 4.2. A 4.2. PDF. I think stop. There you go. Yes, okay. In the upper left-hand corner of this drawing are our material palette, which is primarily, in the addition is a board form concrete for the base, which is up about 3 feet high. Hardy panel with board and bat siding and horizontal siding, which will be painted white to match the existing home. We have stainless detailing around the parapets, thermary decking, and our lighting is all night sky lighting. The windows will be made by Arc Mill in Santa Barbara and also painted white to match the existing home. I think we can now go to the detail page, which is page A8. Don't know the PDF number. Again, we're matching existing details to the existing residence, but we're using, there we go, copper gutters, copper downspouts. Our overall cap on the parapets is stainless steel, and very simple palette, really. I think none of the details are extraordinary. I think the handrail's nice. It's a thermary handrail supported with the stainless steel stanchion. The parapet hides the roof and the solar equipment, so that's not an issue. There's really nothing more significant about the detailing than that. I think I'm done, and we can go on to how's this guy over?
All right, if you wouldn't mind going to L 2.0, which should be at the end. One more or two more. Or L 3.0, I'm sorry. One more sheet. There you go. Per the board's comments, you had indicated wanting to see a planter on the street side of the fence. We have included a 30-inch planter, more or less, and included Acacia Cousin It, which works with the palette that we had previously proposed inside of the fence. And as you will see, where we had the planting space to allow a 36-inch box, we have indicated that, and those are at the top left corner, and the bottom tree are now 36-inch boxes, and then with 24s that are either in tighter quarters close to the house or in planters that will not accommodate a 36-inch box. Other than that, everything has stayed the same, and we've adjusted the irrigation to accommodate those changes.
Good. Does that complete your presentation? We'll move on to questions from the board. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll open up public comment. Is there anyone online or in the audience?
If anybody would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand in the chat or in the audience. And we have received no letters. Seeing none.
Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to comments from the board. Start with John.
I think it's well done. It says okay here, so it must be good.
Alex? No comments.
I think it's well executed project. I don't have any
Thank you.
additional concerns.
A little busy right now.
Yeah, very busy.
No, I think the comments were addressed and it looks good.
Okay, Robert,
I agree with the positive comments. I think it looks like a good project.
you as well. So it's agendized for final approval. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll second.
I'm
All
sorry.
those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna hop back to item 1. Where's Josh? Where's Josh? I know. The whole point of him going up there would be that he'd be back, but. Yeah. So I'm like, he just didn't come here. Start, okay. All right. Item 1, the Smith Hontus Family Trust, request of Danny Longwell, agent for the owners, Smith Hontus Family Trust, for further conceptual / preliminary review of a 1-story, 5,615 square foot single family residence, 4,112 square feet of courtyard and patios, a pool, hot tub, and an ADU under a separate permit, and a 674 square foot garage, new septic, new water tanks, new fire hydrant, retaining walls. The parcel is currently vacant. It will require 1,900 cubic yards of fill and 300 cut. It's a 40-acre parcel located at 225 Lindbergh Lane in Carpinteria. You guys can go ahead and state your name. Is there a planner memo? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Should be green, yeah.
It's Danny Longwell, architect, agent for the owners.
Peter Turba with the architect.
Great. So I think this is a continuation of conceptual review from our initial presentation. The request for some site staking and site visits was made, and that's what you guys did today. Appreciate you all making it out. The comments were, we went back and addressed these comments in our proposal. And I think there was a kind of a question of this concept of this different typology and style. I think it's all derived from Mediterranean language, kind of more rural parts of the Mediterranean. And it's an intentional difference in the design. And the concept is that there's this layering of age that you would find in some of these homes in the Mediterranean region. A lot of the islands off Greece and Spain, Mallorca, were referenced for their kind of agrarian and rural characteristics that still pull in some of the more traditional Mediterranean styles that you would see with arches. So the concept is the formal space here, which almost feels like a converted old building to a more modern current living room and kitchen has these arches, and that carries through the interior and into the exterior covered patios. And then there's a continuation of a more plaster kind of ranch typology with terracotta roofs. So I think I'm hoping that the visualizations that we provided additionally here kind of do a little bit better job of showing that. I think there was also some challenges last time with the file size and not being able to really scroll through them. So yeah, if you can keep going, I think these images are helpful in showing the concept of this layering. I think the materials want to feel really earthy and of the land. We have to have some fire department access paving, but we want to use a coarse aggregate like beige chip seal that would transition into more gravel areas. The plaster is kind of a heavily grouted plaster and stone mixed on parts and a little bit more smooth or less stone plaster on the others. And I think, even though they are different styles, I think there is a compatibility and there's an intentional story, an experiential story that is integrated into the design. So that was your comment on the arches. I think there was different opinions on the board last time regarding that. That again covers the mixed use of materials here. I think you can see there is these kind of buildings which are the garage and the ADU that kind of flank the ends. And the idea is that these are kind of more barn typologies with wood siding that would weather out and be gray with like a bonderized corrugated metal roof, something dull and but also again casual, not formal, playful. I think as you saw there, one of the challenges, it's a really narrow linear ridge line, and we're trying to make the house not feel like a linear structure. And so there was a lot of effort put into kind of creating these pockets of courtyards and indoor and outdoor spaces at all sides of the building. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. The pool was another comment. I think there's this idea that the pool's raised about 8 inches above the ground. And I think, again, it's a rural typology. It feels more like a basin than a backyard pool. Pushing it out towards the edge helps create this courtyard and outdoor living area inward of the pool. And I think you can see if you're on site that there's quite a bit of native vegetation that kind of comes up below the pool, and it won't visually be sticking out of the hillside. So yeah, I keep going, please. And floor plan, the ADU floor plan, which is it's actually connected by a breezeway. This is the mixture of roofs. It's flat roofs, but there's kind of, you see the shed roofs that kind of nestle the more boxier flat roofs in on the ends and sides. Next, please. One. Just next, please. Just keep clicking through these. If you guys want to stop, let me know. Exterior elevations, again, I think it's kind of a repeat of some of those three-dimensional views. On next.
Keep going.
Next, please.
These are all the sections.
And this is a good one to stop at for a second. I think the site does slope a little bit from east to west, kind of downward. It's not a lot of grade, but it is such a long building that, if you try to completely flatten it, it would be a lot of grading. So you can kind of see this concept of how it steps down on the western end to integrate with the grading. And this also kind of plays into the exterior courtyards that tie into these levels. Subtle drops, but it helps it fit more naturally into the site. Next, please. Some exterior details next. Okay. Yeah. So we're unfortunately, Kier is out, but he's I can explain some of the comments there related to the reduction in paving. So if you go next. Okay. So this is a good one, I think, to stop. There was a comment that it felt like the previous plan had kind of a large paved area at the end, at the turnaround. Well, some of that is necessary for Hammerhead, but the areas that aren't Hammerhead, we reduced the amount of paving significantly, created landscape pockets around in front of the vertical surfaces so that there's kind of a layering. I think the intention, the desired goal is to it not feel paved and to feel more like gravel. But we do have to use the chip seal surface for fire. Next, please. Going next. This is the western side. This is that concept of terracing. So kind of the upper level is the master. Creates a little flat spot next to the pool, and then it steps down into this one little area. The owners, they like to kick the soccer ball around. They wanted a little flat, kind of grassy area to be able to do that. But otherwise, vegetation is very Mediterranean native. Next, please. These are some additional renderings done by Kier. I think there's the grassy area. Next, please. And I think this material sheet is pretty good. I don't know if you can zoom in on those images for a second. So you can see the middle top, that's the chip seal, even though it's the paved surface, the intention and the goal is that it would not feel like pavement. And I think the idea that pavement is kind of irregular edges with plants, kind of trying to keep the organic feel. I think the middle bottom you see the pool, this idea, I think that shows the concept of that pool being more of kind of a feature in the landscape than like the modern connected pool that, I think this would be an ideal candidate for an infinity edge pool, but I think they felt that could change kind of the character and feel of the project they're going for. So this idea of having this kind of slightly raised basin conveys that idea. I think that covers it.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to questions from the board.
I had a couple of questions about, I think at the site visit, you were talking about the stonework. Can you talk about that again? How they want that to be?
You could go to there's those 4 sheets with some rendered views. There's some material boards attached kind of off to the side. It would be page, it's probably about the other file. Oh yeah, sorry. First file. More towards the beginning right now. Probably about page 10. Yeah, those 4. So if you go up to the first of those on the sidebar, sorry, on the first page of thank you, appreciate it. This kind of shows the concepts for the stone materiality. It wants to feel, we want to see the element of actual stone in there, but I would almost call it a plaster rather than stone. I think they're all variations of plaster. And I think this sort of layering from the chip seal to the gravel to the natural stone walls, site walls that are more stone to this older part of the building that has kind of like it's been layered and patched. So you'll see little pockets of stone, but you'll see more plaster, more hand trowel plaster. And then
in terms of the way you're going to set the stone, it's going to be local sandstone.
Yes, local.
But you want to use a different technique in the way it's.
Exactly. I think in this, normally the stone we work with the masons, you really see the sort of masonry, the joinery is expressed. That has a more formal notion, and this is an idea where I think economically too, we're going to be able to use more scrap material, thin material, and it's going to be sort of,
So are you going to aim for really distinctly some of the looks of these buildings on the left?
yeah, I would say that the top left, the right square, that little corner is very inspirational to us. I know that is actually an old building that the client took a photo of when they were visiting Mallorca, but that's the idea, is that there's kind of this, it feels like it might have been plastered over, and you'll see little bits of the sandstone beneath, but essentially a very like rustic plaster.
Right, and in your plaster sections, is it gonna have stone?
That would be
Going
more of a pure plaster.
It'll be
just
pure.
with a kind of a rougher hand trowel texture.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yep. Let's see, is there a grading plan yet?
Yeah.
it's in the landscape set.
It's at the end of the landscape file.
Use maybe
Zoom in.
top, yeah. That's good,
There's no information on that.
yeah. Really super easy to read. Okay, and then, so as we were talking on the site just about, which oaks are affected, and it looks like there really aren't any. I'm curious about up where the Gator Road or Gator Path. There will be some grading there, but it seems to be outside the drip line. But, and then I guess upper left-hand corner is where it kind of goes through. But there's no arborist report, right, for that?
Not at this
Yeah, okay.
point, but yeah, you can see the drip line. It's close to the upper left corner, and you can see that the road kind of goes deeply through that.
What's the width on that path?
8 feet.
Okay, all right, I think that's all the questions I have.
I have one more question, and I think it's because I don't think I was here for your first presentation, but did you guys study the angle of the garage at all, since it's a different architectural style, like having it not in line with the main house?
No, it's pretty close to the building, and it's pretty narrow, and there's this parking element. So, I think it could be studied as a slight shift, just to clearly make it.
Yeah, I was just thinking if it was built at a different time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online?
We don't have anybody online. If anybody would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand in the room. Seeing none.
Okay, we'll move on to comments from the board. We'll start with Val.
I guess I had one other question that I didn't ask, which was, let's go to the elevations or actually stop a second. Which room has all the arches? All the arched windows? Is it the dining room, kitchen?
Dining room, kitchen, living. It's kind of that first pod.
So where there's the whole bank of arches, those are facing the garage?
No,
Where are they?
no, I think if you go to the first file
Into the courtyard? Or-
and you go back, there's a good view there, I think, middle.
Yeah, let's go to the drawn elevations.
Keep scrolling down, they're almost there. There you go. So they do not face the garage.
So across the middle,
Yeah, there's kind of a corner there. They're in this
Yeah.
kind of inset.
so they go in an L
Yeah, and there's a,
facing the courtyard.
yes,
Okay.
you can walk through the archway, the exterior archway into the living room. So it's like a
And those are steel, those windows?
this, yes.
But say the next batch on the to the left of that chimney, what are those?
Those are wood, with natural wood doors and windows with,
Hmm.
they're like, they're deeply inset.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of hard to, I don't think the elevation's very accurate in terms of the feel, the volume and flow of the space because it's so flat. But if you look at some of the
The walls are,
three-dimensional stuff, you can see the relationships of the spaces and the depth that's provided by those arches. That window, that next section next to the fireplace is probably 20 feet back from those other
right,
elevations, I think, today's day and age
are tricky. Okay, so I'll move into comments now. I like the garage being totally different materials. I think it helps from whatever distant view there is, although there's not much. And then I think there's your drone shots that look from overhead. It's never really going to be seen like that. It's going to be seen from way below for the most part. Mostly everywhere. And in that way, I think what you're trying to do with all the mixtures of materials and roofs and even windows will probably be pretty successful at trying to make it just settle into the site. The stone arch that's outside feels really nice, but the arches in that central portion, they feel distracting to me compared to everything else. I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter, but I actually like the terracotta tile porch roofs. They look kind of mixed up in the drawings, but I think in reality, they're going to help that feeling of it's just not one long block of building. It's broken up. It's got shadow. It's got variation. So I'm comfortable with that. So I guess, yeah, my only question is really those arches in the center. That even though that kind of steel window is really beautiful, in this form, it looks incongruent. Even though you're trying to be incongruent, but maybe a little too much. So, I mean, you could do a study of that area. That's it.
Josh. Any comments?
Me, I've read through the comments from the last hearing, looked at the documents thoroughly and listened to your presentation. I'm pretty satisfied that all of our comments are being addressed adequately and that the project's on the right track. So fully in support of it at this point and kind of defer to the landscape architects a bit here on particulars about the landscape, but the specifically the details provided, I think indicate I guess my strategy in looking at this is the concept's cool and interesting what you're doing. It's all about execution and using the right materials. And what I see is honest materials being used, very high finish levels being done. A lot of materials that express the use of hands to build, not manufactured finishes, so I think it's going to have a really nice soft patina as it settles in. But let's go into the details here real quick. I mean, it's a pretty concise set of details, but they pretty much validate what you're talking about. So there could be a little bit more detail provided to assure all that, but I think it kind of also the detailing indicates the simplicity of what's actually being constructed anyway, right? So very straightforward construction. And I think the siting of it, by the way, is really nice. sits on that ridge. It pulls itself back far enough to really settle in, be a nice addition to the top of that ridge, given what could be put there. I think this is going to be ultimately a subtle, very, very subtle house. So I support it.
Alex?
Well, I have positive comments and then others are not so positive. So starting with on the positive side, I think the concept is very good. The use of materials and the overall design is very well designed, and we can go over the details and such, but the whole concept I think is successful. I have more questions regarding the proximity to the edge. I think in the site visit, the comment was, well, we're pulling away from the edge. Well, not really. The pool is right at the edge, maybe even over the edge. Also the arches, all that part is very close. Even we talked about maybe moving the garage, which is definitely a good idea, but there's also a patio behind the garage, which is also right on the edge. So that part, I wonder why the whole project cannot be moved towards the north a few feet, just with some rearrangements. That's what I'm getting at. That's one thing. This second thing, I'm concerned about the gator path going through the oaks at the west end, as mentioned, before. And the third thing that I noticed in the presentation, I think the grassy area is out of place with the concept. I think in an older place, if there was a grassy area, then it would be surrounded by a short sandstone wall, and it would be contained, not to be confused with the wilderness beyond. That edge right there looks strange, and it seems like it doesn't click. I could support some kind of grassy area, but it should be, it doesn't seem to fit right the way it's designed right now, kind of loose and meandering. I think it should be more contained and, in a more formal way. Those are my comments.
Well, I like the project very much. I think that looking at drawings and the real item are not exactly the same thing. I think that these textures are going to come off much more in real feeling when you're in the presence of the actual building. And it seems like the arches, we come back to the arches all the time, and it seems like maybe they're not, I don't know, maybe they are the perfect solution for that. I mean, I think that the overall project is really excellent, and the feeling of these different materials, though, are going to be very strong when you're, going through the building. So I support it very much. It's very well done.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think you've done a really nice job of a challenging site, and I like the fact that you're trying to push and pull and not just do a real linear structure. But I kind of agree with Alex and maybe it's a question, can this whole thing move back 2 or 3 feet? I think that would do a lot of good. But at a minimum, as we talked about on site, I think the garage could move back to the north, so that and it looks like on the landscape plan, the hammerhead is in a little bit of a different place. But on your plan, it looks like you've got a good 5 or 6 feet that you could push that to the north. So I would encourage that or I guess rotate, as Kaylee had mentioned. But I think just pulling it back would be a big help. And the only other thing, I don't think you need an arborist report, but I don't think going through those 2 magnificent oaks is the right location for that gator path. So that should go to the north of that second Or skip going between the two if there's room, just hug it up near the house. But there, you can't really just throw gravel down because it'll, sink and move. So just be careful with the grading, I guess, within the critical root zones of the oaks, or try to avoid it if possible. Otherwise, I think it's a beautiful plan and it's going to be a great spot. That's it.
Robert?
Yeah, I think you guys have a great project. I think I made the comment on the pool, which might have been misinterpreted, that just felt to me like I don't know if it's been changed, but in the previous design, like the pool was kind of inaccessible from the spaces around it. But the way it's proposed, I don't really have a concern with its visibility or anything like that. I don't have a concern with the house being excessively prominent in its location. And I kind of agree with your presentation that it's going to kind of recede into the landscape with its position, because it's the only house within like a huge area, and the materials you're proposing, I think, are going to blend in a natural way with the surroundings. So I'm comfortable with the location for that reason. But the only reason I would ever suggest that you could move your house back would be to gain more space for outdoor living on the side of the house where you'd want to be. So, I mean, if that benefited your client, then I would suggest you look at that. But I don't see that the house is like positioned right on the top of the ridge in a way that like makes it inappropriate to the space. So I support the way that it is. I think a challenge that's going to be realized during the construction of your home is, or of this property, is how to address the down slope of like the pool and the house and all that. And it's very steep. And so, during all the grading and getting all this in, I think it's going to be important to address the planting and everything there so that it can kind of come together in a natural way afterwards. And I guess I would just encourage to like minimize as much disturbance down that slope as possible during the process. But other than that, I think you have an amazing project, and
Great.
Hats off to you for studying as much as you do.
I agree with the positive comments. I actually don't think the house needs to shift, because I think the family's probably going to use the north courtyards as much as the south ones, based on the weather and time of the day. And I like the elevated pool element because I do think that adds some authenticity to kind of the era of, or the type of architecture you're going for. I do think, and it won't be a requirement, but studying the angle of the garage, I think it would go a long way to make it feel more eclectic, as it was built at different times with different materials, more agrarian. So for the landscape plan, the plant palette suitable to the site. To Alex's comment about the lawn, I think just a careful study and making sure it looks like a meadow that's been kind of carved out of the natural landscape if it's going to be in that location. Otherwise, it would feel more authentic to be a more formal shape like the other outdoor courtyard spaces. So just kind of one or the other. It needs to be very naturalistic, that it just is maintained to be used that way, or needs to be more formalized. I think that's all of my comments. Generally positive. I think it's a beautiful project.
One other question. I saw one of the comments was white is not appropriate at this location. And of course, a lot of your inspiration in Mallorca and Greece is white. So, but where are you with that on the plaster?
I think on those material sheets with the renderings, it
Can you go back to the renderings, John?
hopefully depicts it.
Yeah, I
More
thought it
earth
did, but I just wanted to ask
It's,
you.
you know, the off-whites they're a hard material to render. The computer just either comes out as white or like really
yellow.
The concept is that it would be a lighter shade of the stone plaster, but still tan, earthy, off-white,
Right.
beige.
So yeah, when you get further, you can come up with your colors. And I also just want to say, the more you can get that really rustic stone finish will make it incredible. If it's not like your typical Santa Barbara stone, if it's like that. Yeah.
All right, so you guys are here for further conceptual / preliminary. Does someone want to make a motion for preliminary?
Well, I'll make a motion to grant preliminary approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Oh,
I submitted with the comments made.
Well, including the comments that.
Joe, do you need clarity on the comments? Because some of them were more conversational.
I think the main one that I had was, it seems like there's some disagreement, so I could talk about that. So I have, for one of them, it says, majority of the board agrees that siting of the project is successful and will result in a subtle house. 2 members suggest the siting could be adjusted 2 to 3 feet back to the north.
I think that's fine unless we want to do a straw vote, but does anyone feel like that's not accurate?
I think that's okay, but is there any differentiation with the garage comment?
So for the garage comment, all I added was for them to study the angle of the garage, but if you want to expand that.
Yeah, I
I'm
would
happy
say
to add
the
to that.
angle and or the, pushing it to the north.
And to avoid going between those trees with the gator path.
Okay, so we have,
Did you get that, Joe, with a gator path not going between the trees and grading and all that?
I do, yes.
Okay, thanks.
all right, so we have a first and second. All those in favor? Aye. And return final full board. Thank you.
Enjoy your holidays.
Thanks. All right, moving on to item 3. St. Mark's Edition, request of Harrison Design. All right, the St. Mark's Edition, request of Harrison Design, agent for the owner, the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Los Angeles, Corporation Sol. Here for preliminary and final review of an addition of 271 square feet, interior remodel to sacristy, storage rooms, entrance, and the mezzanine. Exterior elevation remodel, associated hardscape and landscaping of 2,075 square feet. There's existing structures on the parcel, parish offices, rectory, and church. The project will not require any cut or fill. Property is a 1.1 acre parcel located at 6550 Picasso Road in the Goleta area. Our previous comments were short, so I'll read them. Well-conceived project and great improvement over existing. Consider rhythm of planting to consider blocking of doors and windows. Show existing tree species on the landscape plan. You can go ahead and state your name and address the comments.
Anthony Grumbine, architect with Harrison Design.
Father Ryan Thornton, pastor and representative of the Archbishop of Los Angeles.
Catherine Kelly with Harrison Design.
Stacy Hargitay with Harrison Design for landscape.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. As you have seen from before, we'll go touch on the comments and kind of walk through the set. We're here for project design approval or preliminary approval and final, I think is our here for. I believe most, if not all of you were here for the last one similarly, but I wanted Father Ryan to just explain shortly what the project is, recap. It's been a year and a half or so just a refresh.
Substantially, the project is to address many needs at the site of St. Mark's. These range from doors that no longer lock properly, windows that don't close, and what I like to call the Berlin Wall feature, which is the dividing line between the 2018 project that was done and the need to complete that. And that's what this project is about, is bringing unity, architectural unity to that space and to these various facets that make up the parish, from the rectory and the office buildings, but mostly centrally the church itself, which is the centerpiece of the site.
All right, great. Okay, so why don't we walk through, and do you have the comments
Yeah,
available if you
I
can?
just read them, but
Yeah.
the first is just positive, well-conceived project.
Thank you.
Consider rhythm of planting to consider blocking of doors and windows, and then show existing tree species on landscape plans. So
Yeah.
only landscape comments.
Yeah, so as we go to the landscape page, we'll touch on that. Stacy will run those through. And actually, why don't we just jump to that now, and then we can come back to the architecture.
Sure. So we've added the existing species on our plan as requested. All those are to remain, primarily Melaleuca olives to remain for you as well, and added some of the plant species for general improvements, mainly low Mediterranean water use plants that'll highlight the architecture and complement the improvements as well.
All right, and as you can see that none of them block the doors or anything like that, because that was a concern as well from previous. Okay, so if we can go to the, main page and just maybe walk through one at a time, and we'll just make sure we cover everything. So here's, as just a reminder of how bad the current church is, the bottom. And we'll have structure and other things to look at too quickly to see how we're starting to make this a reality. Okay, if we can go to the next page. All right, this is more of the existing condition. And then as you see, the two different, the one, the rectory and parish area has been redone, and now we're moving on to the main church, and that's on the right-hand side, middle row. You can see some of those images. All right, on to the next page. All right, so here's our site plan. You can see the multicolors of different, that's not the actual colors of the paving, the blue and that, but just indicating where we're doing new hardscape and getting everything to connect, as well as the general planting, and a lot of the trees are existing and will remain. And then on to the next. Survey. Yeah, keep going. And then here's the landscape plan that we touched on, and then more. All right, if we can, yeah, keep going, and then now on to civil. So,
You can keep going.
yeah, it's boring. We're architects and landscape architects. All right, yeah, if we can keep going. So we've gotten that to work out. The yellow is a new expansion of space, but it's still underneath the roof of the existing. When we take it off the existing roof, keep going. Yep. And then, yeah, keep going. Yeah, there we go. Now to the fun stuff. Okay, so then on I guess in the bottom is the main facade now. Now we're working out all the details, getting the material palettes on the right-hand side. Red brick paver, fairly typical Spanish azulejo, and some mosaic features and that we're showing typical examples of on the right-hand side, bottom right, some art work, and then our colors up on the upper right of the building in that. So, all right, to the next page. All right, this is the side with the two double doors entries, before and after. And then you can see the ghost in of the various plantings as well, just to show where they're kind of landing on the elevations. And all right, and then this is the one parking lot side, or the parking lot side. One of the comments that wasn't in the minutes but was made at the meeting was also to take a look at this wall, because it was a little bit plain. So we basically kind of carried around the pilaster, but then minimized it at the top of the parapet wall, and continued the finials as well. So it has some detail, and then we're going to do some artwork mosaics in those three niches on the wall as well. So, and we're also showing where the trees are that are existing to remain. And then doing a new fence as well, enclosure, wood enclosure. Okay, on to the next. And then there's a little piece around the corner that is getting refreshed as well. All right, on to the next. And then here's some of the details being worked out, and all sort of proper classical Spanish Mediterranean detailing. And those are front niche as well as, pilasters and those details in the front windows in the upper right. All right, on to the next. All right, so here's more study of the main entry, wall section showing how it's kind of coming together, and the wrought iron balcony and how it's going to be working out, and as well a finial detail for the parapet, as well as the mission gable top. All right, on to the next. All right, more details, how it's all going to get worked out. To the next, please, and then some sections, getting that to work. All right, more wall sections. Yep, and we're also working with the contractor as well as at this process to make sure what we're doing is actually buildable and how it'll all come together, because it's messing with, at least how we think it'll all come together, given what we know about the structure. All right, on to the next. It's going to be obviously very deep walls. Door and window schedule. All right, next. All right, and then the structural, we can flip through those as well, Ashley and Vance. And they had done the original structure to the one side as well, so that they're working away. Yeah, you can just flip through the structural there. Kind of where we are, yeah. Into the next. And you can see the gray on the right-hand side is all the new and the demo and how those things are working out. All right, on to the next. And yep, if you keep going, more details. And then electrical as well, if we can flip through that for the lighting plan. Yep, keep going. Yep, and then, yeah, keep going. And yeah, there we go, the lighting, and then on to the next. And that concludes it. So
Okay, thank you.
happy to answer any questions. I'm very excited about the project.
And we'll move on to questions from the board. Does anybody have any questions?
Just had a quick question. 2 questions. The light fixtures at the.
Oh, yeah.
Are those dark sky compliant?
Yes, they are. There's a shield over it that, yeah.
And then can we go real quickly to the landscape plan? Just wondering, the area between the parking lot and the building itself, looks like there's no new proposed where those 2 trees are. Is there existing plantings there, or is that going to get destroyed when they redo the facade, and is a little more planting necessary?
Sure. Currently, we have it as existing to remain, but we can look at proposed renovations considering construction damage.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. Yeah, I like your details a lot, but I didn't see much about how the moldings and finials, how they done. Are you using foam or are you framing them and plaster on top?
I think it's going to depend on the pricing. Ideally, we'd like to frame them and plaster them, but we may end up with foam. We may end up with a foam with a skim coat as well. That's going to be part of having the contractor on board and pricing it different ways. So.
Okay, thank you.
One more quick question. Where's the ficus hedge proposed?
We further developed our planting plan, which we have for you if needed, and we did not include that established. So it's not in the planting plan palette. This was our initial concept
I
proposal.
see. Okay, so there's no planting plan.
And actually, we thought you might ask that, and we actually have it here, but it wasn't in time to submit. So, and actually, we have some copies. So, if can we?
We can't accept
Final, we can't take them.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Well,
So, but we can make it an easy process if everything else is in line. So.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Is there
Any other questions?
landscape lighting? Is there any exterior lighting for the
So
spaces?
there's no proposed lighting, no.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right, we'll move on to public comment. There were no letters in the box. Is there anyone online or in the audience?
If anybody in the room would like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand or turn in your speaker's lip. Seeing none.
Okay, we'll close public comment and move on to comments from the board. Start with Alex.
I think it's a very nicely designed project. I was just wondering about the details because I hope it is, when it's done, is as beautiful as the drawings, because not always happens, you know. Just a word of caution.
We're going to make sure it happens.
All right, John?
I agree with Alex. I think it's a great transformation for the better.
I agree also, and do think that the execution is going to be really important to carry through with the mood that you've created by making classical style.
We're very big sticklers on the details.
Good.
I'm going to recommend to the board that we give preliminary approval and bring it back on consent for final today if we're going to move this forward at all. There's been too many comments about maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. So I think we should have the applicant finish their construction documents during the building and safety submittal process, and then kind of look at it towards the end of that to do the final checkoff on the detailing, because I think, again, like the previous project and comments, that the execution of the details is going to be everything, and the quality of the materials to achieve I think the type of architecture that's being attempted here in the elevations needs to be there. So I would support a preliminary approval today if the project would come back on consent for a good look at detailing. And I have one comment for the architects to study on the west elevation, sheet A3001. You go there, Jonathan? I think just looking at studying the proportions of the different elevations proposed and the entry, the forward facing or the main entry side of it is really lovely, but on the west side, I think these two doors need a little study. I feel like they may be over detailed or crowding themselves into those. There's kind of these bays that are created between the window areas on either side that create this kind of punched effect. But it seems to me like the cornice over the door is really tightly pushed up against that change in plane and kind of tucked in there. And I think it needs study. I don't really have a solution for you. I just think it needs to be done better. I think it feels crowded and kind of just kind of forced in there. I don't think it looks right. So study that. I don't know what the solution is. Is either to expand it to reach the edge of that planar change and connect to the part that's pushing out on the sides, or to pull it in, or some variation there. But if you go to the front elevation or the south elevation, I guess it would be. Notice the kind of space that's being created between the center element and the side elements where the lamps are in between. You have your kind of decorative lighting in there, and there's a nice spacing there that affords that. I think that's a good proportioning. Also, on that, can we go back to that west elevation? I would just push the comment forward that there should be some lighting at those doors. I just think from a safety standpoint, and you would expect it to be there. So I think some kind of lighting needs to be provided at those two entrances to illuminate those as actual, entrances and egress points to the building.
Yeah.
Can I respond to that? Because there actually is lighting. It's just it's a super deep recess, and so it's a recessed light, can light from in, because that door is set back enough that we can.
So you do have lighting on the exterior, because your testimony previously is you didn't have any. But
You have no landscape lighting, I believe.
so no landscape lighting?
No landscape lighting.
Okay, gotcha.
Just the building.
So it's downward pointing from the
Yeah.
soffit above the doorway. That should be fine. Anyway, so Joe, simple comment here, study the two doors, the detailing around the two doors on the west elevation. That's all it needs to say. You don't need to include all that rambling nonsense.
Okay. Okay. Oh, John.
Well, I support this project. I think Isla Vista is a architectural collection of hasty buildings. And this should be an anchor for Isla Vista, as if Isla Vista is here to stay. So, thank you.
Yeah. We go back to the landscape plan. Yeah, I think I would just carry through my questions into comments and study, what is that, the east side? No, north side. I guess, include new planting on the north side of the building. And also, I didn't ask this before, but just bottom left of the site, is that existing? And then let me point to it because it's here.
Yes, that's correct. Also planting to remain. It's one has a curb and one is a flush to the.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. It's one has a curb and one is flush to the sidewalk.
I see. Okay, so the comment would be to study the landscape holistically along both streets and improve, bring it up to a higher level as necessary, including on the west side of the structure. That was terribly said, but I think you get the gist.
Sent it to Joe. Ready? All right. Robert.
Could you go to the cover sheet, please? Are you showing like a tile detail on the steps there, kind of coming into the front of the building?
Yes,
Is that identified in the plans?
I believe so. If you go to the elevations, I believe we have a tile. Let me see. I know we had one, but I'm wondering if we're showing it on there. We're not showing it on here on our materials palette. We're showing, yeah, Azulejo, but it's
Hi,
not.
this is Jennifer joining from Harrison Design virtually. And if you zoom in on the brick over on the far right of the page above the light fixture in the material palette, you'll see that the intent is to have the tile pieces really small. In our rendering, it shows kind of a brighter one, but we'd still be staying in this palette. And if you zoom in even more, you'll see that it's the tile pieces are kind of minimal. The overwhelming color that you'll see is the terracotta.
So if you look at that, the sort of the interspaced tile work in between the brick patterning, the light, a little bit of white, even zoom in a little more if you could.
Yeah, I understand. So that's on the top surface of the paving, but on that elevation, you're showing on, like, if you're looking at the front of the building, like there's tile.
On the riser?
Yeah, on the.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think we are thinking of a tile riser as well.
And then it looks like you're identifying that there's tile that goes into other, where's the other? Anyhow, I think a comment is that it would be nice to further detail where.
Yes, back for it.
I think it would be great to see it in your plans. I mean, it's a nice detail that that rendering you have on the front sheet. I think it is a quality that adds to your project. So I just would like to see that identified in the plans. I think Josh was kind of identifying that as well. And then could you speak to the paving on the Embarcadero Del Mar side? Is that existing concrete?
Can you zoom out, Jonathan?
I guess you can, if you go to your landscape sheet, it looks like it's identified as existing. Is it, I'm assuming that all that concrete is just in good condition and you guys are wanting to preserve it because of cost?
Yeah. If I'm understanding where it is, can you hover over where? Yeah,
On the bottom of the sheet there,
where
the
the,
existing concrete that goes in the middle of the landscape space, where you got all the trees along it.
oh yeah, the steps and
Yeah.
the sidewalk there. Yes, I believe that's all existing everything
Yes,
there is
yes.
existing to remain.
Um, All right, that's cool. I guess,
Ideally, we were trying to keep from unraveling the sweater entirely. And, and so we were trying to keep as many things that we could work with there because we're really going to be stripping down the building and we know we're going to get into unknowns there. So we're trying to keep it.
I guess you were identifying in the beginning of the project that you're trying to kind of like marry up the two different parts of the construction of the building over time. And maybe I would just suggest from a hardscape standpoint, it might potentially look like you have old materials and then new materials. I'm not saying you got to.
And one thing I'll speak to is that the other sidewalks wrapping around that you also see on page north above the plaza is also concrete. And so the idea is that the plaza spaces where we intend for gathering of students would be the terracotta. Everything else is treated more like a sidewalk. And so it's matching the concrete that's consistent around the site.
Okay, that's fair. I think that makes sense from like the standpoint of establishing hierarchy for your paving. So I support your reasoning there. I would like to see just anywhere where you're proposing tile, I think you should show us what it's going to be in the plans. And then we will need to see a detailed landscape plan that shows a specific location and quantities of all the plants. You're going to need an irrigation plan as well. I understand you have a hydro zone plan. Probably need to show just the layout of all your irrigation equipment.
Okay.
I think architecturally is a great project. It's going to be a big improvement to your building.
Yeah, I agree with the positive comments and that we just need a little more detail on the landscape plan and paving materials. So those, I believe, can come back on consent. Does anyone want to make a motion for, let's see. Yeah, they're here for prelim and final, so we need
I will make a motion for preliminary approval with the comments made with the project to return on consent for final.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. And just a point of clarification, can we submit at risk, now that we have prelim, we can submit to the building department at risk and then come back to you guys?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, great.
Preliminary approval is an approval.
Yeah.
It's an appeal. I mean, I would wait for the appeal period to end, but
Yeah,
you should.
over Christmas, it'll be quiet.
Yeah.
All right,
Sneak your
thank
sign
you
out,
very
yeah. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to item 4. Is the applicant for item 5 waiting in the audience? Oh. At some point, we're gonna have to take a break. So should we call it at 4 if the applicant for 5 isn't here?
This should be pretty quick.
Okay, so maybe we try 4 and 5.
We do have Kevin's hand up in the chat.
What was that?
We can
Think we
almost.
can make it all the way through? Okay, we will try to make it all the way through.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Hi, I was just going to say that the applicant for item number 5, I believe, is online.
There, okay. We were just discussing maybe we can make it all the way through before lunch. All right, doing it.
Let's go for it.
Before break. So please canceled lunch. All right, moving on to item 4, Smyers edition. Request of Keith Rivera, architect for the owner, Scott Smyers. Here for conceptual review of garage conversion to habitable space. There's an existing single-family dwelling of 1,515 square feet, attached garage of 492 square feet, and it requires less than 50 cubic yards of cut or fill. It's a 0.16 acre parcel located at 491 Via El Encantador in the Eastern Galeta Valley area. You can go ahead and state your names.
Thanks. Keith Rivera, architect, and we have the owners, Scott Shelley Smyers here.
Thank you.
Can we go to the photographs page, please?
The set
It
is
was-
broken up into
I
like.
think it was a separate sheet. If not, no worries, we can move on.
Is it a separate file?
Was a separate file. Maybe we can just go to page 7 of that set, the site plan, and I can just kind of wave my arms here.
We don't need to review Title 24, all
Yeah,
that stuff, you know.
yeah.
It would be nice to have like one set for, you know, design stuff. Yeah, yeah.
So while he's digging through that, we're in the eastern Goleta Valley, the neighborhood kind of west of Turnpike, south of Hollister, your sort of typical early 60s Goleta Valley tract neighborhood. The Smyers bought this home about a year ago. And the reason why we're here is because it had an illegal, unpermitted garage conversion. And so in permitting some interior remodeling, that became an issue. And since we're adding square footage, goes to an LUP and to you guys.
Sorry, 1 second. Jonathan, I think open your part 6 file. Sorry, Keith, just so we have it
Yeah.
in front of us.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the site plan. That's, the little house.
Look at the elevations then.
2 sheets down
Yeah.
in part 6 still.
Yeah, right there is the site plan.
That's part 5.
Page 7, I believe, is
Think him a little bit.
the site plan.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling up.
The set got broken up.
Yeah, so yeah, the best thing is just to have the design elements and then use the reduce file size PDF option, and then it gets into 3 megs or something like that for the whole thing, and it goes really quick.
Okay.
So Keith, you're wanting us to bring up the site plan. I'm just looking for.
Yeah. There we go. So you can see the house on the upper portion there of the site. The main focus of the project was intended to be the interior remodel, reshuffling some bathrooms and the kitchen. And then you can see on the lower portion there, the unpermitted garage conversion, which the Smyers would like to keep. So in doing that, we would be creating 2 surface parking spaces and adding a strip of permeable paving there that's in the hatched coloring there along the southern edge of the driveway to widen the driveway to do that. Then if we could go to sheet 9, the floor plan should be just 2 sheets down. Well,
Is that the only site work? Is that little strip along the driveway?
correct.
And we don't need to look at interior.
Yeah, so why don't we just go to the elevations that you had there? So here we are at the elevations. The east elevation's facing the street there, and you can see that the proposal is just kind of keeping what's there, which is just would have a stucco infill in the garage door and a new window. On the southern elevation, the existing's on the left, the proposed is on the right, just reworking some existing bathroom windows to make them smaller for privacy reasons, and then changing out a sliding glass door for a swing French door with a side light. So those 2 pairs of elevations are really kind of the only changes to the exterior that face the public way. So that's kind of it. Again, pretty small.
Yeah, but we have to do public comment first. There actually was a public comment letter. So first, no questions from the board. Moving on to public comment. Anyone in the audience or online? There's one letter we'll put on screen. I did review it. It's mostly pertaining, if there's an addition being considered, just a concern of. All right. Now we'll move back to comments from the board. We won't go one by one since it's pretty straightforward, Alex.
I think it's an approval project, very simple, and I suggest that we move it for design, for preliminary and final design to the consent calendar.
Give us,
A
well, we
second.
don't have a second. It's just
Hmm.
whether we're all in agreement.
I agree.
Conceptual. Okay. All right.
Hey,
As easy as we can make it for you.
Doesn't get any better than that.
right. Have a
Thank
good
you.
holiday.
Happy holidays. Yeah. All right. Moving on to item 5. All right, Bellsburg Stable. The applicant is online, just to check before I read everything. Okay. All right, request of Jonathan Villegas, agent for Micah Bellsburg, here for further conceptual review of a new horse stables with office, tack room, bathroom of approximately 3,467 square feet and 224 square foot covered porch at the horse stable. There's an existing single family or primary residence of 1,921 square feet. The project will require 225 cubic yards of cut and 206 fill. It's a 6.12 acre parcel located at 1335 Holiday Hill Road in the Eastern Goleta Valley. There's a memo, and I'll read the comment because there was only one. The board is not supportive of the height as designed. An additional study required. Restudy to eliminate excess height. Study separation of wing buildings. This was more than one comment, I guess, just lumped into one letter. Oh, is it? Okay, all right, then maybe it's not worth finishing. We'll review the memo. Project is in Hillside Ridgeline, which has a 16-foot height limit or up to 19 if the roof pitch is 4 and 12 or greater. The previous project exceeded the height limit, but is now designed to meet the maximum height limit of 19 feet. I don't think there's anything else. Okay. Yeah. Previously and now. Is the applicant on? I see you online, but you're muted.
Jonathan, can you unmute?
Unmute my, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yes, this is Jonathan Villegas with Dark Moon Building Design Engineering. And we restudied the height of the building and changed a little bit of the geometry. So it's more of just a regular type of a barn structure that is a 4 and 12. It's above the 16 feet height limit, but we have a 4 and 12, so that allows us to get the additional height in there up to 19 feet from existing grade. And you can see that.
Sorry to interrupt, but do you mind orienting us to where Holiday Hill Road is compared to the site plan we're looking at?
Oh, yeah. So Holiday Hill, if you go up Fairview, it's kind of tucked away into in a Fairview kind of residential area, but then it goes into kind of an agricultural and equestrian area over there in Goleta.
Well, we know that, but where on your map is it? And we did a site visit there. So we went winding up the hill and
Yes.
the original barn design was right next to the house. So where is it now in relation to the house?
It's in the same place as it was before. We did not move it. So it's actually in the same location as the last time that we met with your board. So.
Okay. All right, we can go back to the presentation. Sorry, we were just trying to get our bearings for a second.
Okay, sure. The site, actually, if you want to just go back to the site, so we're very constrained on where we could actually build this this building because we are by riparian areas of the creek and some other setback areas. So there's a very small little window of where we could actually build any sort of structure. And this was kind of the area that we put the barn where it was the flattest in that area. So anyway. If you go to the elevations, you can see that we, like I said, we've redesigned it so that way we're underneath the 19 feet there with the 4 and 12 pitch roof on the main barn. And so, yeah, page A2.1, the thick line up above the elevation shows the 19-foot height from the existing natural grade right there.
Seems pretty straightforward. Is there any associated landscaping?
Not really. They're going to keep it pretty much as it is. It's nestled surrounding a bunch of oak trees and other trees along the creek side. The existing land has some lemon trees on there that most of them will probably remain. Some of them are not in good condition, so they'll probably just have to go. But we are not removing any sort of oak trees in the area. We will have a mostly gravel fire road that's access to this barn area. So we want to keep it as permeable as possible.
I think we can move on to questions from the board. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. We'll open up for public comment. Is there anyone online? I didn't not see any letters in the folder.
We have nobody online and nobody in our audience, and we have no letters submitted.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to comments from the board. Again, pretty straightforward. So I think if someone wants to pipe up.
Can you
Here
show
for
that
conceptual review.
rating plan again that you were just on right there? Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think as Kaylee suggested, it's pretty straightforward. It looks fine to me, but I think you will need to provide a landscape plan for the graded areas for erosion mitigation purposes.
Okay.
And otherwise, well, and it was just a gravel road, and what's the slope on that?
The slope is, I think the max slope on there is 10%. So we can go up to 15% on there.
With, I think what's the maximum for gravel, isn't it?
10.
12, 10? Okay. And is it gravel or chip seal, just gravel?
We're trying to use something that's going to be permeable on there. So we're still kind of researching that a little bit, but yeah, we want to make it as natural as possible.
Okay, so then I guess I would, it's not a motion, but I would suggest that we do the same thing as we did in the last one and move this forward on consent for prelim and final, but for the applicant to verify with fire department that the roadway material that they're proposing is acceptable, and also to present the appropriate landscape information, planting and irrigation for the graded or the disturbed areas of the site for this project.
Disagree with that direction? Okay, so you can go ahead and return final, prelim and final on consent.
And on the final, we'll need all the construction drawings pretty much, right?
Yeah, and that's what you'll want to include your road section, like your civil engineering section for fire.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Look at us moving. Moving on to item 6. Right, yes. The Reardon parking modification request of Craig Minus, agent for the owner. I should make sure, is the applicant for item 6 online?
Yes, we do have Craig Minus online.
Okay.
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Okay. Here for preliminary review of a setback modification to allow 3.5-foot reduction of the 20-foot front setback from the right of way and a 13.5-foot reduction from the 50-foot front setback from the street center line. the new 16.5 foot setback from the right of way and the 36.5 setback from the street center line will allow the development of an ADU being processed under a separate a CDP. A single family dwelling exists on the parcel. Properties at 0.15 acre parcel located at 6867 Trigo Road in Isla Vista. And would the applicant like me to go ahead and read the comments? Or would you want to go one by one?
Yeah, I mean, we're prepared to address them all, so I think, we don't need to be repetitive. I'm happy to go one by one as we move through it. Would you like me to continue with the presentation?
Yeah, let's go ahead and have you do that.
Great. Good morning. My name is Craig Minus with CAM Land Use and Development. I serve as the applicant's land use planner. As the agenda describes, this is now the third time we're in front of your board. And we're prepared to address all of your previous comments. I did want to call attention that I believe many of your remaining comments exist today due to unclarity in our previous landscape plans. So since our November meeting with you, we have engaged a new landscape architect who I believe has provided stronger representation and design in the project. So I'm also joined by Anthony Ojeda. He's with Plein Air Design Group, and he'll assist me in describing the project revisions. Let me just get over to my notes here. So I believe you had 5 remaining comments, A, B, C, and D. And these will largely revolve around the landscape plans, which are at the end of the project, end of the plan set. So whoever's navigating can probably get there. The first comment was majority of members find modifications supportable. However, the plans do not sufficiently address the prior comments, and the applicant must demonstrate relationship of the ADU encroachment to the adjacent structures. So there was a separate file we provided Kevin, our planner, yesterday that best describes this, and particularly your comment about how the proposed ADU would relate to adjacent structures. We made this exhibit. The red line describes the extent of the proposed ADU, and then in front of it is a patio that you'll be reviewing today.
No, sorry to interrupt, but we've seen it several times. So I think mostly if you just go through your planting plan.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And
the purpose of that was just to show you that, the neighbor to the east, to the left there does have a structure. It would actually extend beyond kind of our proposed ADU. So that was the basis for proposing the ADU where it was and giving you some understanding of what's happening on either side of us.
Okay. On your planting plan, the thing I see that's missing is the sizes. Are we not seeing it somewhere?
The sizes will be in the plant legend on the next sheet.
The next sheet. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure it was just included. Okay, and does have quantities.
Yes, correct.
Can you then present to us what you did to address the comments?
We basically we refined the landscape and actually made it more precise and drew it actually to scale. Another thing too is that we worked with Mr. Reardon in order to finalize the planting. They had just different call outs like small shrubs or small grass-like plants, but so we actually narrowed it down to actual plant species. And then the other thing too is I think another comment was a hedge between the driveway and ADU, and we did that by adding some Lamandra. But yeah, I mean, so we basically just finalized the planting plan.
Yeah, there were other significant revisions. The board had some reservation about the driveway and the adjacent sidewalk, and was pretty particular that they wanted to see separation there. So we've done that in the plan set, and the S6 landscaping. We've made a designated landscape area between the driveway and the sidewalk. The previous sheet, if you go sheet up, addresses distinguishing between, you know, those areas that would be intended to be driven on and those that would be walked on. So you can see that the driveway's distinguished with gray concrete, including a broom finish. There would be a distinctive wash finish or some sort of sand finish for the areas that are you know, pedestrian oriented. So that was a big revision to the plan set.
Okay. Is there, I see kind of a WELO table shown on the planting plan. Did you provide a irrigation or at least hydrozone for, or, because I think you're over the square footage. I think you are kicked into WELO for this.
Yeah, that was a preliminary one. Once we wanted to kind of get the approval first before we finalize the irrigation plans. So when we do the irrigation plans, like how you said, we would be doing the MULO compliant, but yes, that's when we'll provide the final MULO calc sheet.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? All right. Is there any public comment in the audience or online? I did not see any letters.
We received no letters, nobody online or in our room currently.
Okay. All right, we'll close public comment and move on to comments from the board. It's mostly landscape, so let's start with Chris. Robert, start with Robert. Chris punted.
So, what happened was that you detailed the planting, but the size of the paving, the layout of the paving is the same from the previous proposal, is that correct?
Updated finishes.
Yeah,
Except for the sidewalk, okay.
Yeah, the sidewalk changed. Again, you know, the patio in front of the ADU, if you guys want that to go away, then we'll fully pull that out. Again, you know, this will be students, they enjoy outdoor area. We can, you know, reduce that size of that patio. We can eliminate it altogether, but we really believe that, you know, that area provides them a nice outdoor area that is usable. To some degree, if we start shrinking it so much that it just
Yeah, I was
doesn't.
just asking for clarity, so I mean, maybe I could just quickly go through the comments here and just see how you addressed them. So, the decrease amount of paving and increase the landscape area. So that the one area where you increase the landscape area was on the side of the concrete path that comes into between the driveway and the entry path. Is that correct?
Yeah. Perhaps if we could look at the next sheet, that would be.
I think the walkway just moved to the right a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just an adjustment in the layout of it. You didn't really, you didn't reduce the size of the concrete patio at the front of the property. You didn't consider the placement of a short fence in front of the ADU. You did provide separation between the walkway and the driveway. This says here that sidewalk should be different color and or texture than the driveway. So,
Different texture.
it's a different texture, so you establish that. Drawing should show existing setting along the right of way. Move boulders back from the right of way line to ensure parked cars are able to open their doors. So, looks like you eliminated the boulders.
Correct.
If I had to kind of gauge on what the board's comments were, I think there's some concern that the space in front of the proposed ADU could be developed into like a parking spot. So, I think your selection of plants is appropriate. I don't really find a problem with it. If anything, my comment would be that there should be something maybe somewhat more permanent than the rosemary that's proposed around that patio to prevent it from just becoming a parking spot. But I'll kind of pose that as an open option to the rest of the board. And then let's see here. Yeah, and you said you're going to come back with the irrigation plan. So I think your selection of plants is fine. And if anything, I think a potential fence in front of that little patio should happen or something more permanent.
And if you want to condition us with that, I think we're totally open to that.
Okay. Chris?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think the moves that you made are basically what we were asking for. So I think it's fine. I would, add an actual apron at the driveway to make that up to code. But otherwise, I would encourage you to maybe use a little color in the pedestrian concrete, but otherwise, I think you've addressed the comments, so I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
All right. Anything from the architects on the board?
I know, I think the applicant has responded well. I still think that we need two things. Excuse me? Jonathan? Yeah, okay. I think the applicant has addressed the comments correctly. What we need is some documentation to make sure that this, we know how things are, and sometimes people end up parking all over the place. So what we need is on page L20 that has to have full dimensions, there are a couple of dimensions missing. And also either to put a curve or next to the driveway, between the driveway, on that planter between the driveway and the walkway, to have some kind of a 6-8 inch high curve, so nobody will drive through, and a short fence, a low fence around the ADU yard. So it's just to make sure that, I'm not sure that, I'm not saying that you're going to do it, but maybe a new owner 3 years from now may decide to park all over the place, and we're gonna make sure that that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any additional comments?
Yeah, I objected to the encroachment of the setbacks before, and I still feel that way. I think it's bad news to park in the front yard setback and bring the yard all the way to the curb line with no pedestrian access or pedestrian thoroughfare. I think that it's just unfortunate. That'd be my comment.
Okay. Any last comments? So it's what? This is agendized for preliminary. Anyone want to make motion? See if it carries. Or
I'll make a motion for preliminary approval with following comments. What were they again? Oh, to bolster the separation between the driveway and the entry walk with a fence or a curb. Also the same in front of the patio, a low split rail fence or something to discourage any parking, and consider adding some color to the pedestrian concrete, and show a concrete apron, the new concrete apron to code. And I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
one member feels that the encroachment is not.
And
I'll second that, but you gotta tell me what you mean more specifically by bolster.
I said, yeah, either with a curb or a low fence between the driveway and the entry path.
I think
or a wall. I mean, just
yes, it could be like a low planter, basically a raised planter, right? Is that what you were talking about? So that rectangle is more permanent.
Okay. So
yeah,
something, a low planter, a wall, a fence,
split rail or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a second from Josh.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And do we have one?
No.
Yeah, one no.
Is it going to the consent or is it going to the board?
Consent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, last one of the day and the year. Does Chris want to? It's both.
Okay, welcome. My name is Christopher Gilliland, and I'm here to chair this meeting for the last item. Item 7, the Vista Oceano LLC request of Ryan Mills. Even though it says Joe Shushtari on here, I believe there's a change for the agent for Vista Oceano for further conceptual review of a new 11,539 square foot.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
all of that's not correct, so I'm not sure why. We have,
Aha.
with our planner, he assured us we'd have the new job description.
So assuming that none of the comments apply either.
Right set, but that's correct.
Okay. So we have is it a new project or is it different?
No, it's a continuation of the last.
Okay.
Yes.
The-
Yeah, and I watched the last hearing as well.
Oh, these comments are correct then.
The job description is not.
I see. Okay, so the
Job description on your title block?
Yes. Yes.
project scope, upper right.
Why we do that?
Yeah.
Hoping someone will read
So
it.
this project scope includes the new 7,390 square foot, so half the size. A single story family residence and a new attached garage of 485 square feet on a vacant parcel. Require 1,493 cubic yards of cut and 115 of fill, 11.3 acre parcel, Vista Oceano Lane, Toro Canyon Community Plan. Thank you. And so this was last heard on the 4th of October. And so we have a new agent. And so do you want me to read the comments or do you want to just kind of present?
Up
Okay,
to you.
because you love the sound of my voice.
Do.
Okay, there's a lot of them. Mass bulk and scale is acceptable, but that will have changed. Restudy ways to soften the scale and proportion of the arches. Arches overtake the composition of the elevations and not enough space is provided between top of arches and eaves. Restudy details to be consistent with mission style architecture. The bell is a nice detail, but is out of scale and should be taller. Chimney caps don't appear to match architectural style. Simplify details throughout. Restudy the colors of the stone detail. Also, this is a very large project on an agricultural lot. Incorporate design and landscape elements that make it compatible with the surrounding environment in 3 ways. 1, proposed structure appears to be projected on a flat raised plane artificially placed on the site. Study ways to integrate the exterior setting with the layout of the structure. Return with a landscape plan to demonstrate how the project will integrate with the existing landscape and neighborhood. The execution of architectural design and landscape need to be articulated. Incorporate landscape planting between residential uses and orchard. So, Mr. Mills, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That was very good. Good job. Okay, so we very recently adopted this project, so we have a long history with the owner, and I know this property well, so we were pleased to get to take the ball, and it's our job now to take it to the end. So we haven't had this long, but so we looked at all those comments, but we kind of took it a step back further. Our charge or goals were to maintain the plan more or less from what you guys saw last time. So we didn't change the floor plan. We'll refine it, but for this pass, we really just focused on massaging the exterior, picking up all the comments, and the goal for me in this meeting would be to hear from this board, do we have a good direction to move forward and come back for a preliminary next time? That's sort of the big idea goal.
Got it.
Okay, so you know the site, the pad hasn't changed, the floor plan hasn't changed, so let's just skip right past. Let's just go through the sheets. There's a couple things. Yep, we saw the aerial next. You know that site next. Existing site photos. Let's go past that. We can come back to any of this. You understand? Okay, a couple sheets, and this is honestly less about the architecture. I mean, some of it, but more about the environment. You heard last time, it's very agricultural, very simple. I think the previous proposal just showed generic gravel. While that's sort of the flavor we're going through, I wanted to show these just to kind of capture a little more. It's more like the Andalusian. It's like simple hardscape, simple gravel areas all the way around the house. So the sheet on the left, or this sheet, kind of represents as you approach and get closer to the house, there'll be some form of hardscape skirting the house. And then at the entry court, which I'll show you in a few sheets. And then let's go to the next sheet. Oh, is there only one sheet of photos? There should be two. We see both. There we go. And then here's more, just again, giving a flavor or a sense of what we're hoping to achieve, kind of that very casual agricultural feel. So nothing real manicured and curated up against the house. So we'd rather let the land kind of bleed simply to the footprint. So that's what those are for. And again, in this presentation, we don't yet have a landscape architect. I have shown you some ideas and concepts of where we're going, but by next time we will have a landscape architect, full team, and we'll have all that good info for you. Let's go next. Keep going. Let's go down to the floor plan just as a reminder. That's the site. Let's zoom in here. Something we prepared for landscape because that was in the minutes. I know this board has asked a couple times for a landscape and we're working on it, but this at least gets us closer. So maintaining the existing orchards, moving up the site, then you can see some amount of turf or usable lawn area just kind of skirting that front view side. And in that area is a large utility setback, so we can't really do anything in that zone. There previously had been pools. There's no more pools. Again, that footprint is what you saw before. And then so we will have some form of paved drive coming up because our slope kind of moves between 9 and 12 and up and down %. So depending on, started talking to the fire department, we'll pave all the way up to that kind of an apron that enters kind of the gravel motor court area, if you will. Again, intentionally, we can zoom in a tiny bit. The idea is you pass through, flanked by a couple decorative trees, and then just for that moment, the four create a little bit of formality, fountain as a focal point, couple parking spots off to the left, tucked out of the way, then otherwise it's sort of this asymmetrical, casual motor court like the images we saw. And then we are picturing going from gravel, bound with some barrier, to hardscape into that kind of forecourt to the house.
And one car garage?
One car garage and 2 exterior parking spots.
And are you, I know there was discussion about there's an existing road that meanders through. Is that going to be the main entry, or are you coming up along the side of the?
No, I think it's, if you can go up 3 sheets, we're maintaining, there's 2, and the one that weaves in and out of the orchard, let's see, can we have a whole aerial? This is sideways. But the main drive will be up the side property. The one that meanders through the orchards, they're leaving as like an ag cart path. That one's not being developed. Okay, let's go back. So you saw that, and then next is the existing floor plan. Again, there you will see a little inconsistency with my new elevations for the plans. Like I'm not keeping the chamfer corners, but again, we just have gotten this so recently. I want to show you the direction and then we'll fine tune the plan accordingly. But basically the layout and the size stays the same. Let's go to the elevations. And the main things, so we kind of took a broader approach. So it's sort of a mixture of, I think, Mexican hacienda, but we started looking at kind of rural Spanish compounds as well. So we have still has some mission features to it. But one of the biggest things we heard was sort of that strong repetition of all those arches, and the arches weren't quite right. Proportions were sort of funny. So what we did is start by breaking it up. And actually the bottom elevation, this is the view side, and it was a good place to start. So we made the public area, the main middle piece, we maintained the big stucco arches, played with the proportions, and then the two bedroom wings, as they go past those kind of carved breaks, go to columns, just to differentiate the two types of zones for the house. On that rear elevation, you see that, but we still maintain that strong kind of big great room, has most of the volume running front to back. And then this top elevation is the entry. So can we zoom into that? So, and to the right, let's start on the right. So the driveway is coming up on the right side of this house here. Am I oriented right?
Sorry, go left.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, no, go to the other side. There we go. So we're coming up this way. We turned this corner, so there is one suite on the right. Again, we're introducing kind of softer plaster, really hand-done materials. The chimneys are going to have some organic quality to them. Turn the corner, parapet roof, and then keep panning left. And then here's the entry sequence. So we just tidied things up. So we made a much more substantial, sort of mission-esque, but a much more substantial component. And we looked closer with the grading and the heights, and we had a little more wiggle room than I think the previous applicant showed. Closed in the garage door there, single car carriage, just simple doors, kind of very ag looking, and then a covered porch to the bedrooms to the left. Let's go to the next sheet of elevations. And then these are a couple of the side elevations. Again, just kind of repeating, trying to break up the long, low mass with like a solid, like you see that bottom one, kind of like a solid piece with a corner chimney, which holds one of the big guest rooms, and then covered porch on the left. And then to the right of that, it's actually way beyond. And then the top one is the opposite side elevation, just doing the same thing. So we have those breaks in elevation, and you can see on the right was the public areas with the stucco arches. On the left is like the more colonnade of the bedroom. And let's go to the next view. Zoom in on the top. Again, just perspective vantage point. This is our inspiration. So a couple things. So again, we just showed this elevation, rounding the corner into that loose gravel entryway. And then let's zoom in a little bit. You can kind of see we're going to indicate, and I have an option I wanted to talk about. So then introduce a step up, like a hardscape zone as sort of part of the procession to the front door. So before it was just sort of gravel and cars could go right up to the front. So we're holding them back. And then that hardscape kind of continues past the garage all the way down as a walk, kind of very casual skirt around the house. So stylistically, very different, very, I don't want to say primitive, but softer in material. We are looking to introduce a stair. I mean, there's two parts. There's going to be a lot of equipment, but we just loved the idea, and solar, so they want access. And so I proposed the idea of, can we make it decorative? There's no other purpose up there, but as part of that courtyard experience, we just thought aesthetically it was wonderful and beautiful, but liked the idea of getting them up there and telling a story. Let's go down. These are quick plans of what that looks like. There's two versions, and one I had, sorry for the looseness of this, but we started thinking about introducing a colonnade. Let's go to the next sheet.
That is actually the last sheet.
Oh, that is, okay. So then that does conclude. I think I covered all the comments. Again, I think taking a bigger step backwards just sort of is a restart for many of the comments, but that's our current proposal. And again, our goal would be to come back if this feels like a good direction with much more information, details, landscape.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you. Can you back to that last sheet? So you're showing, you said two different versions of the same. Well, one without a stair.
One with the stair, one without.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? No questions.
Wait,
One question.
one question. Does it show what the site, I just didn't notice if there were good photos showing where the house site is and, you know, how the grading works and
Yeah.
is it up on a knoll? Is it,
Oh.
you know, how visible, all of that?
Mhm. Yeah, at the beginning, we breezed by, there were site photos because I presumed people had seen these before at the very beginning. So this has, I think this was produced after some comments of an earlier visit here where they actually gave all the different vantage points. So from down below, so you can see our sites in the yellow.
Mhm.
You approach off the freeway and
Go
then you
up
start
Lambert.
below and look up. So oh, sorry, this is difficult, but all these photos show, like the bottom two show that vantage point looking up the site. You see the existing orchard.
Yeah,
at
like
the
the one
very-
with the van at the bottom, is the building site up at the top of that hill?
Van at the bottom, where are you looking?
This lowest photo.
The house is the very top of that site. So even
Right.
if you zoom all the way into that, they might have shown something indicating where the house is. Yeah, so
Oh,
this
yeah.
was actually a sim from one of the earlier, I thought they had that. See there, right, that little tippy top, so that would be the house above the orchard there.
Okay.
And then let's see, if you go to the top of the page, let's see what the other photos have for you. I think this was down, this is farther down off the freeway, which showed that you don't see the site. What else? And then this is
That's where
what the site
entry-
feels like
The entry drive would be on this.
on the left. Yeah, that's that straight shot up, neighborhood to the left. There's a lot of landscape and screening, the orchard to the right. So that would become the main
You
drive
go to the
up.
upper right side of the page.
Mm.
Okay, and then that's looking up into the property from Lambert, I think, maybe?
Yeah. And it made me think, your question made me think of one of the previous comments from an earlier hearing was the plinth. I think, Chris, you mentioned one of the comments. It was just oddly placed and they just kind of flattened the entire top of the mountain, retained all the way to that north property line, just as like this super dumbed down blank pad, which we're now breaking down. So we picture the set point is that easement we can't really touch. So that set the height of the house. So you can't, maybe we could shave it down a foot, but we're not supposed to touch it. So then we really held that height to that new motor court, that's sort of the boomerang shape, and then everything can taper off from there. So we expect like if you go to that site, that, let's see, go up to that rendered site plan, up. Keep going, no, where are we? Go down, let's just start going down a few sheets. Five more.
Last one on the left, bottom left, I think, right?
Down 4 more.
Yeah, 4 more.
Boom.
There you go.
All right, zoom into that. So the house pad is set. The motor court is, half a step below that and in the tan. That would be gravel, then it's bound by some form of border, somewhere between flush to maybe seat height. And then on the outside of that, we can drop down 2-3 feet. That's all we think we need, then continues to catch up to natural grade. So we just kind of grabbed only what we need. There you could see dashed line, we have the hammerhead and all the pull-out requirements vetted by the fire department.
You go one up just to see what the this is all existing grade. That's the
Yeah.
previous, or no, this is you with an overlaid on there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you zoom in, so kind of you can see the easement to the south of the the proposed plan is really, if you zoom way in and just pick one of those points, we just really set the height based on that because we can't grade that down.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. If there's any public comment, anyone online?
We have no one online and no submitted letters.
Okay. Comments from the board? Val.
Oh, I think you're on a real good track. It's, the covered porches all the way around and I think your walls are pretty thick too.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice. And the stairway is an interesting idea. Everyone will want to go up and look at the solar panels. Maybe something else will be up there, but no, it's very inviting. And the whole entry, you're really getting into that good old style ag, almost feels like a breezeway when you're walking in. That's great. So.
Okay, Josh?
I think it's really thoughtful and moving in the right direction. I don't really have anything to add to what's already been discussed. There was the one comment about the artificial pet, like kind of site condition. But the way I look at it, it's like an agricultural property. Like obviously the land has been tilled and flattened and denuded of rocks and all kinds of things. So it's surrounded by, I think it's a pretty mature avocado orchard, right? Is that what's there today?
Yeah, yes.
So, given that it's in an ag zone or traditionally ag zone area, I really don't think that's a problem. So I'm pretty supportive of how that project's been cited, and there's plenty of room on the site to mitigate any grading activities. So great architecture, mass bulk and scale, and neighborhood compatibility are all, I think, checking every box.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomer. I've actually brought up a question for me. When you're there, will you see out over those trees? Or are you looking right into them?
Yeah, well, we're allowing the orchard to come up, but I can't tell you precisely. We'll probably test that and obviously want to see the ocean as much as we can. So
maybe a little pruning.
Even in this sketch, I did start eliminating trees. So yes, so obviously a few will be removed until we can see.
One other question. Do you see a lot of other houses from this site? Because I'm not exactly sure. I didn't notice if there's an address for, it just says Vista Oceano, but there's no address on our description or anything. But when we've been back in that area before, there's these big ag properties and then big houses sort of spread around on different.
Yeah, there's great distance. So when you're looking, you can find them. Like looking south, not so much. The neighbor, I guess, plan left here is heavily screened, and that's really a barn structure that's close to the property line. But obviously, if you go to the north side of our property, that northeast line, and look back, because we're sitting up over a lot of that. So that's the neighbors you start seeing. But it's like the equestrian center. And then beyond, yes, then it's sprinkled in the foothills beyond.
Is the equestrian center, it's down and.
Much lower.
Much lower, right?
Yeah.
Because it's down kind of at.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, and I was answering in terms of like, you're on the property, you walk to the edge of your property, you're looking down from the equestrian center. I haven't gone there, but I'm not sure you see much of our house up the hill over the crest as a 1-story. But we could cut a section for that.
Yeah, just interested in the general neighborhood, because I know there's lots of orchards and then big houses on a hill, and then it drops down into another orchard. Okay.
Board Member Verdiak, your final comments, sir.
I think it's really well done. You captured that kind of eccentric floor plan. It's in a way random. It's not formal, and neither is the house. The house matches that well. I think you've turned that project around very successfully. So kudos for that effort.
Mr. Peugeot?
I agree. Nice work, nicely done. Thank you.
Mr. Richards?
Yeah, I agree that you made major improvements on the previous proposal, and I think your inspiration imagery is great to kind of get an idea of where you're going with it. And one thing I kind of noticed from, maybe if you go to page 5 on there, like I think that top left image to me kind of like captures a lot of where you're going with this. And there's this character of some of these homes in these photos where it almost looks like the home's built around one like really nice specimen tree that they decided to keep. So And it seemed like in the way you were developing that patio space, like as you enter the home, like maybe there's an opportunity to really figure out how to get some really cool like canopy tree or the home kind of feels wrapped around it. But anyhow, I'm sure that you, and I love the stepway up there too. I think you could develop that into like, maybe somebody wants to go up there and enjoy the beautiful view out of it. So you obviously think very creatively and you've brought it all to this project. So I support your project. I think it's great.
Okay, Ms. Grubb.
Yeah, I agree with those positive comments. I think it's a huge improvement. And I think we were all trying to understand the gravel motor court in the previous rendition, and now it really makes sense with the architecture. It'll all tie together well and feels like agricultural. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I concur. I think it's on a really good path. I guess the driveway thing, I don't know. I guess there would be a question. Did you consider using that meandering driveway as the main entrance? And is there a reason not to? It just seems like a romantic sort of opportunity to drive through every day, drive through the orchard. But if it causes like a conflict with the operations or something, maybe it's twice as long, so it's gonna be twice as expensive. But I was wondering if that was.
Yeah, being completely candid, when that came up, I was instructed that's our driveway over there.
Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, beyond that, I think it's going in a really nice direction. I love the, coming in, seeing a fountain or a focal point. It's just, there's a nice progression through the whole experience here. And I think you're definitely on the right track. I love the staircase also. Any other comments? This is here for further conceptual. Seems like come back for prelim when ready, right? And no real comments, right? Just positive across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I have one question. I'm guessing that they love white for the walls. Is that true?
Yeah, and kind of the imagery we pulled,
Yeah.
that was the discussion. So kind of
Yeah.
that whitewashed, lime washed, like
Mhm.
rural Spanish.
Yeah.
Is-
I mean, on mountainside homes, we really discourage it, but that's why I'm kind of asking about the neighborhood and feeling like it's got a different vibe than, that
Yeah,
you could do that more easily with white and not have it be
yeah.
too visible or too stark. So I guess if you come next time with photos of kind of the area a little bit more,
Sure.
it'd just be helpful.
Do you have any walls, any exposed walls, side walls, garden walls? I mean, like that one on the left, it's very visible, being white and so forth.
Yeah, we will. So not on the view side, not the approach, but on that north
back.
side, the back side of that's holding the motor court, those will be low walls.
So
I wasn't personally thinking whitewashed. I mean, those could be stone walls again, because that would be.
Stone would help.
That would be visible from
Yeah,
the,
stone would be good on the site walls.
but that's really the only place we need walls.
or dark color, that would be another, some kind of, that's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Just one last thing. I think you're hillside ridgeline here. So just show us if you're needing to exceed the
Yes.
16 or 19 feet, because it seems like you have quite a bit of variation. And so.
Yeah. No, we are. We
can
had
review
all that
that.
in the computer. I did my quick overlays. But yeah, so we're mindful of that minus the chimneys and features.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bon appetit.
Thanks. And that concludes the SBAR meeting of December 20th,
Last one?
2024.
It's the last one.
Last one.
Now
Thank-
we're gonna have a special one on Christmas Day.
Thank you, everyone.